Hey folks, it is housekeeping day. That's right, this old ironing board is looking pretty shabby, so we're gonna use some really fun supplies from the garage and recover this ironing board, or show you how to make your very own large ironing surface for your studio. Are you ready? Let's get started. Well, welcome back everybody. That's right, I am your host Rob Appell here at So Well from Stitchin Heaven, and I am so blessed to see you on the other side of the camera today for another super fun tutorial. And if you've seen me or you looked around my studio, maybe you saw my So Special spaces, I like a real organized, tidy, clean space because not only this is the filming area, but this is where I do all of my sewing when you're not watching as well. So I like it to be clean and tidy. And this ironing board surface is done, folks. It's cut, it's burned, it's glued, it's ready to be swapped out. And so that's what we're going to do today. And maybe if you're watching for the first time, you haven't seen me do this before, you'll learn how to make your very own firm, hard ironing surface for your sewing room as well. So I want to go over a couple of quick things and supplies, but before we get started, if you're new here, welcome. Please subscribe, please comment, please like today's video. It helps the channel grow. We have a wonderful sewing community developed here at Stitchin Heaven. Even just put out a new Facebook channel, a private group for So Well. So please consider joining our community, share with us. We're having so much fun sewing together. And one of the things I learned when I joined Stitchin Heaven was the benefits and the love for the wool sewing mat, pressing mat. I said sewing mat, excuse me. This mat is wonderful for pressing, especially while we're doing our patchwork and things. But we don't want the wool on top of our cutting mat, because what happens with the wool is it helps pull the heat and steam down through and hold it, and then it kind of comes back up. So it's like a double pressing, a double ironing for your fabrics, but it can start to warp your cutting mats. So before I had the wool mat, I had made myself this wonderful ironing board, and I'm sorry, Levi, you know I didn't make this. You did, and I still have it, and I still love it. Thank you. This ironing board must be over 10 years old because a friend did make it for me at a retreat years ago. It's plywood. It's a 1/2-inch plywood that is 2 foot by 4 foot, and then it's been wrapped in a couple of layers of cotton batting, and now it's also been wrapped in several layers of cotton fabric over the years as well. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to set this aside. We'll use the wool mat for ironing unless we're doing our bindings or something really big, but I just love to have this on the set. The other things we're going to need is we're redoing what I've done before. Let me just show you. The back of the board, we need to cover where the staples will go, and we don't want to scratch up things. And you can see I originally had tried to glue on strips of fabric with heat and bond, and it's a great thing, and it lasted for quite a while, but it didn't last forever. So I'm exposing now where the staples were, and we're gonna make sure that after we put on the new fabric, we cover those staples again. And I thought it'd be real fun to bust out a grandmother's sewing box, a fresh tube of tacky glue. How tacky is that, right? So anyways, we'll use here, Mike, hold that for a second. We're gonna use the tacky glue to sew or to glue down some felt strips. So we're doing some very old school craft style sewing. And so while I'm here tidying up, I'm just cutting strips that of the wool felt, this is a standard polyester felt. It's 60 inches wide. I'm cutting 2-inch strips, and I wanted to point out that whenever I'm cutting something so thick, I always use a 60 millimeter rotary cutter. So it helps get through all those layers of thickness. Of course, this doesn't have to be beautiful or accurate. It's on the back of the ironing board, but still you can see that really helped make everything really easy by having that larger blade. That's what the bigger blades are for, folks. So we're going to come back to that. I do need to set that aside. You're going to want to have a staple gun, and your staples should not be as long as your lumber is wide. Don't ask. If you can't figure that out, maybe you shouldn't be operating a staple gun. And then of course, you're gonna want an old antique ball peen hammer from your grandfather. You probably won't need it, but it's just so cool to have around. So please get yourself an old antique ball peen hammer. They just make you feel better. And if we do need to set some of the staples, that will also come in handy. Now, I took today, like I said, this is the upgraded version. before I was using cotton fabrics, and now I'm using the cotton batik. Now batik, if you're not aware, is a more dense fabric. It's a tighter thread count, and what I'm hoping that's really going to do for us is keep it so it doesn't get so linty and fuzzy, and also really stay nice and crisp when I'm ironing, helping again all of those fibers set nicely. So as I'm getting prepared, I've already cut my fabric about I'm going to say 4 inches longer and 4 inches wider than my board, because I want to wrap about 2 inches around to the back side of the board as we're getting ready. So you can see how this is going to just center in here like yay. Okay? I want to start with the long side, so I'm just going to rotate this. And what we're going to do is we're going to staple one side, and then we're going to pull it super taut on the other. The other benefit of using this batik is the density of the fabric, which was the first benefit of using the batik, but that's also going to help us really secure where our stapling goes. Now, I feel like batiks really don't shed or thread out too much. They don't unravel. But if you are concerned about a raw edge, take the moment to fold under just one time with your batik. And we're just going to try to set a nice clean line so that when we glue down our felt later, it's real easy. Now folks, you might want to turn the volume down. It's going to get loud as I operate my staple gun. I'm going to start down a few inches so that I can come back later and address the corner. But I'm going to go ahead, trying not to hit a staple that's already there from before. And here we go, just lots of pressure down and setting my staple in. And then I'm going to come down, securing, pulling tight this way, and setting a staple about every, well, a little less than a shaka, so let's call that 5 inches. I'm just going to make sure I have enough fabric to keep this fold under going nice. And again, setting those staples. Once I have a staple about every 4-5 inches, I really want this secure, and I'm going to be tugging on it. So now I'm going to go ahead and set a staple between each of the staples. But still not to the corners, because I want to be able to fold those over after I bring the short sides. Let's take a moment. I'm going to need grandfather's hammer a little bit. Tack those down nice and flat. Did I tell you to turn down your volume already? I should have. Now, here's the key to a really nice top surface, just like when you're wrapping a Christmas package. Pull it tight, rotate it. Pulling it nice and tight. And now I'm actually going to start, folks, in the middle of the board and work my way in both directions, almost like we were basting a quilt. So again, I have a raw edge that I want to fold under. Want to make sure I get off to a really good start here. And even though that's not as wide as the first was, remember I have about a 2-inch wide strip of that poly felt that we're going to tape down or glue down. So I'm going to secure that. Again, pulling this way, the slack out of the fabric across the top of the board. Rolling the edge under. And I'm going to secure. I'm going to come down here. Remember, we're working now away from middle. Pulling nice and tight. You see I keep lifting at the board to pull tight. And now let's just take a moment and flip it over and make sure it's going okay. Oh, nice. Nice and crisp. That's what we're looking for. Mostly just so it looks beautiful on camera there for you. But nonetheless, now that we know it's going to work beautiful, let's go ahead and finish out, again like we did on the first side, by setting staples up to almost the corner and then filling in. After you get them filled in, again, set them completely. I was having a bit of a problem with my staple gun. I found there was a staple stuck inside. So now that I've Cleared that, it seems to be working much nicer. And now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing from the short side, pulling, tucking under that raw edge, and setting from the center. Now heading towards that corner, pulling the slack out this way. And as I get to a corner, I'm just going to fold under like I would for my miter, all the way deep in. Let me see if I can kind of show you. And then I'm just going to kind of sloppily wrap that, because nobody's going to see that again, because we're going to hit that with the 2-inch poly felt here in a second. So staple, staple to secure. One in the field. And now let's address this other corner. Okay, now that you're on your last little short side over here, same thing, pulling it around. If you've got yourself a little too much, you can tuck extra under as needed, or you could trim off with your scissors. Setting again from the center, moving out in both directions, nice and taut. Let me see if I can show you one of these corners a little bit better with a little more fabric. So again, kind of like we're mitering, I'm going to kind of tuck up and down, but as I'm tucking down, I'm also folding this side underneath to get rid of as much of the raw as possible. But really, at the end of the day, I'm just kind of making it work, sticking it down. Okay, well, the brutally fun part is over, folks, but now we're gonna go ahead and tidy it up so we're ready to rock and roll. We're gonna go ahead and make sure that all of our staples have been covered with some polyester felt. So this, again, was 60 inches wide and very inexpensive, and I happened to cut it down to 2 inches so that now I can come in and I can just glue this down right over. So what I want to do is I want to just dry fit it, or make sure I know how long I want it. And I really didn't cut it in advance because I wanted to make sure I could cover over all of my staples in one pass this way. So I'm just going to cut it, making it fit like that. Very nice and easy. And then we're just going to get out the old tacky glue. I think I got to cut a hole in the top. So where's that pocket knife? Don't cut your plastic with your good sewing scissors. Mom always gets mad when you do that. So get out a good pocket knife or your crafting scissors or something and get yourself a little groove on the top of your tacky. Yes, I know I just put the cap on the floor. I'll get that later. Okay. And then really, it's as simple as this, folks. Take your tacky glue and run yourself a bead all about 1/4 of an inch in the whole perimeter. Do 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 do. You may need to go to the advanced squeezing grip. Don't squeeze too hard though, because you don't want too much. It's gonna get gooey. Okay, and then just go ahead and carefully grab it. This could get so ugly. Pull it taut, flip it, and set it down. And then just apply little bits of pressure like yay. Okay, and then I'm going to do the other long side. And folks, we are doing this to cover the staple so we don't scratch any of our furniture or on any of our tables or whatnot. I know a lot of you like to do your sewing on the dining room table. I'm not 1000% sure this polyester felt wouldn't scratch a really nice antique table or something as well. So just make sure you're testing and you're being careful. I would hate to give you some sort of wonderful ironing surface that in the long run damaged some fabulous antique like grandfather's ball peen hammer or something like that. So do be cautious, know what you're getting yourself into, and I do believe this will work out great for you. It is wonderful to have a nice rigid ironing surface. You may even want to make 2 of these. And a reminder, the lumber was originally cut at 2 foot by 4 foot and it was 1/2 inch ply. Plywood generally comes 4 foot by 8 foot, or you can buy 4 foot by 4 foot sections. I actually have 2 of these boards. I've made one of them in white fabric and one of them in black fabric because I actually use the black and white to help audition colors when I'm making my quilts and my seams and picking out and all of that and ironing. So I really have an intention behind the all black and the all white. But what I love is when I'm ironing the backs of my quilts, I put both boards together. Now I have a 4 foot by 4 foot surface, and it seems to really make it nice because if you haven't heard me say it before, folks, fabric has memory. And when you iron your fabric, the fabric wants to be in the state it was when it was last cool. So what that means in English is if you iron your fabric really fast and then you move it really fast, chances are it's just going to look wrinkled again because it didn't cool nice and flat. So that's why a big board like this is a real benefit, and they actually make a wool pressing mat that is almost this size. It may even be a little bit larger, and that is incredible. I just don't have the room for it in my sewing room for that very big one, but if I did, I sure would like to have it for sure. I just adjusted this over here. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight because there was one little staple standing out down at the end. And then once I have those long ends on, as I was hoping, yep, so you really only needed 2 of those strips. I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and I'm going to make sure that the short parts come over the top of the long parts so that these corners act more like a foot and actually elevate the whole board off of the table surface. Again, hoping to prevent some scratches. So if you were concerned, you could then put some nylon or something like that at these corner points, which would actually help hold your ironing board securely off the table. So as I'm wrapping this up, folks, today, I just want to say again how much I appreciate all of you being out there, all of the support, all of you subscribers. You know, we're well over 40,000 now, having a blast here. I really love working with all the folks at Stitchin Heaven, and I want to do a bunch of really great basic videos because there are so many new quilters out there. So this was one of my ideas that I thought might help a lot of you get prepared for your world, your journey in sewing and quilting. So if there's something you would like to learn, something you've seen around the set, something you saw in my Sew Special Sew Spaces video, something like that that intrigued you, please let me know in the comments below. I read each and every one of them, and I really do plan the videos based on what I'm hearing from all of you. So I do hope that you are able to get yourself something wonderful for your sewing room, and I will wish you all a fantastic sewing day while I wrap up the rest of this side of the board. And again, folks, thanks for being here. Stay well. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really helps support our channel. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Hit the little button to be notified every time we go live or do a new video for all of you. And here's one from the past I think you'll really enjoy.